How to create a 3-node Kubernetes cluster using step-by-step instructions where you create one master node and a two worker nodes all on Ubuntu machine or a Linux machine. We're going to cover in this video. Now, just to give you some context, we are assuming that you already have the three Ubuntu machines. And if you don't know how to create, or if you're new to this, even creating Linux machines, drop a comment inside this or below this video so we can give you step-by-step instructions to even create Ubuntu machines either on AWS Cloud or Azure Cloud or cloud of your choice as well. Hi, my name is Atul from team K21Academy, where we help you in your journey to learn multi-cloud and cloud native, including containers and Kubernetes, AI, machine learning, and data as well. Now, this video has been taken from our training program. So if you hear some references about training, please ignore them completely. And at any point in time, if you hit any issues in implementing these things, leave a comment below this section. So watch this completely, and then second time, actually follow the steps step by step, because when you implement these things, that's when you're going to learn them. So go and implement, and any problem you hit, leave a comment so I or my team can help you. With that, let's go straight into the video. Just to give you some context behind this, in this we are creating one master node and a two worker node. And if you're not clear with the concept, I'll go and explain as we move forward. But prior to that, there will be another training which is about Kubernetes for beginners. In that, we're going to cover all much more in depth. Either prior or after this, we'll have more steps about Kubernetes cluster whole thing. Now, this is about something called as unmanaged Kubernetes, which means you have to install, create a virtual machines on which will act as a worker nodes and then also master node. There's something called as a managed Kubernetes, which is Kubernetes implementation on AWS, which is EKS Elastic Kubernetes Service, which I'm going to do separate video on how to install and configure EKS Elastic Kubernetes Service. Another would be like similar to that AKS and Azure Kubernetes Service, which will be separate one. Similar to that Google Kubernetes Engine, separate to that. And another one, Oracle Kubernetes Engine. We cover all the four unmanaged ones, managed and sorry, those are managed Kubernetes. Apart from that, inside the advanced course, so if depending on where you're watching this, we have a more advanced course, which in this we cover the multi-master Kubernetes cluster, which means there are multiple master nodes and multiple worker node. In this case, only one master node we are doing, and then maybe two worker node. Other thing is that this means if you're setting, so that's something separate, which is multi-master, which will be coming separately. Now, at the time of recording this, which is I think mid 2024, the master node can only be the Linux machine or Unix machine, which we are going to use Ubuntu for that, which is quite common in the industry. And then worker node could be Linux or Windows. So in this guide, we're going to do the master node only as worker node as a Linux only. But later in part, we might have some additional session where we cover how to add a Windows worker node into that whole Kubernetes cluster so that you can deploy any Windows-based applications if you want on this Kubernetes cluster as well. So we'll talk about that. But master node at the time of recording, this will always be the Unix and Linux things as well. So I'll explain you. I think I've given you but I'm going to go deeper into these ones as we move forward as well. Now, at any point in time, if you hit any problems, just want to reach out to, we have a school community. So you can come here under community section under Cloud School, and you can raise questions or queries so that team can help you. And that's number one method of reaching out. Also, depending on which program you're part of, you might have access to the WhatsApp group. So raise question in that WhatsApp group, or you can raise a ticketing system by dropping an email to our ticketing system. You know the process on that. If you need help, again, ask in WhatsApp group on this. So this is what we're doing. We are creating a 3-node Kubernetes cluster. Now, all our document like that, there'll be index, which will talk about introduction. I'll explain again or give anything missing from the introduction section. The documentation section will be talking about all the documents that we have referred, or which will be useful if you want to go deeper into this installing Kubernetes as well. Now, this installation commands, what we have noticed is a lot of times people make mistake of mistyping these or not typing correctly, or there's a space, or they copy it from the Word document, and that's where create the problems that I'll be talking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these screenshots and then put into a notepad, and especially make sure because sometimes what happens is when you copy paste that, there might be some issues in the copy paste. So that's why we're going to put it into notepad, which will clean up all the extra junk characters, I think. And also how do you type the full command in a single line there. That's where I've seen the problems as well. So just to let you know there. So this is documentation. Also prerequisite, this section will talk about prerequisite as we come. I'm going to talk about that as well. What are the prerequisite is mainly make sure that you have three machines, and I'm going to explain when we come to that point on depending on whether you have doing it on Azure cloud or AWS cloud, and if you're doing Azure, then it's a free trial account or a pay-as-you-go model. Depending on some limitations might be there, we'll talk about that as well. Then we are going to do setup. This is mainly for information, what all ports you need to be open, and for this guide, we are going to keep every port open so that you avoid issues. And later, if you want, we can restrict the port and only allow the selective port. Communication between master node and a worker node, or from a client ID from which we are going to run a utility called kubectl, which we'll be seeing as well. Also, another info here is creating a master and worker Linux machines, which we are going to use Ubuntu. You can use other flavors as well, but we have tried and tested on Ubuntu, so we're going to, for the exercise of this, stick to that place. Then we are going to do installing container D, which is a container runtime like Docker. There are multiple container runtimes that are supported. We are going to use container D, which is more common these days. In past, it used to be Docker. We have replaced them now with container D, which is much more common. Then kubeadm, this is a utility which will be configuring our cluster, and then other packages like kubectl. Kubectl is a command line interface to interact with Kubernetes cluster, which we'll see later part. Then in that we are going to create an initialized cluster, which means we'll be initializing on master node only. So this command needs to be run on master node only. Then we are going to run kubeadm on the worker node so that worker node can join this cluster, which has been created on the previous step as well. And then finally, it's very, very important you share your learning. So at a couple of places, one is on LinkedIn, what you have learned on that. Maybe you can post it like and say, hey, I worked with a client and they were looking for Kubernetes installation. This is what we did as a 3-node cluster, and share your key points on that and say implement this. So you build yourself as an authority. So if someone is interviewing, they can see and look at on your LinkedIn profile. We're also going to post in WhatsApp group if you're part of WhatsApp group, but also make sure that you come into the community under community and write down and mention here saying that you've done it and share it under the wins category. So write down as a completed successfully. Important point why you need to do is it will also give you a mental trigger, dopamine effect, which will be you will be inspired to do more and more of those. Also, when you do it, others will also take help if from you, that will help you in learning. Also, it will inspire others as well. And then finally, very, very important, we clean up the resources. So in case if you want to use that, maybe you can shut down the services, but other option is to delete all the resources, which means all the virtual machines. Will clean it up and then you can rebuild it anytime. Later, we are going to, in the subsequent other modules, we'll see how to install it EKS, which is Kubernetes on AWS or Kubernetes on Azure, which is EKS and AKS, which is a managed Kubernetes that we're going to use in case if you want to use them in future to build. Or other option is you can shut it down and then bring them up when you need it to deploy application and further points as well. Now, the last part is very, very important, troubleshooting. Now, when you build over the period of time, and we doing it for a good few years, people have encountered a lot of errors, mostly because they have either missed the particular step, they have not followed the step, or the ports are not open, or 99.99% chances are that you are following one of these mistakes. So go through them every time you hit a problem, double check the steps thoroughly, and make sure that you look at the error messages as well. Also go through this troubleshooting section. The common questions I see is that one 8080 port number refused. Another one is a 443 connection refused. These are more common. Or when you're initializing the cluster, that time it's waiting mainly for the port number as well. All those things will be covered in this troubleshooting section. So make sure you watch them carefully. Also, uh, when you are going for the interview, there might be asking you what are the issues you have encountered when you do the Kubernetes cluster, in provisioning the cluster or bootstrapping the cluster. That will be come handy as well. So those all these things will be covered here. The final bit is about only for if you're using non-Ubuntu or on-premise, though we don't support these. This is just for more for information that if you're configuring non-Ubuntu, you need to make sure that at a Unix level firewall configurations are there. You have to disable SC Linux because that interrupt some of the parts on between master node and worker node. So if you hit a problem, disable SC Linux, and if it works, then you know that it's because of SC Linux. You might have to incorporate some parts as well. Also related to swap, firewall configuration, and so on. We don't support on-premise setup because we know 99% chances are that's because of your misconfiguration on the Linux machine or Unix machine as well. And then finally, we wrap up this. So this is overall going to be. So this is with that. I'm going to go now, first of all, step by step. This is what we're going to do. We're going to create a Kubernetes cluster. Now, the diagram represents, I'll explain you the diagram as well. So we are going to do two machines. This is a machine one and this is machine two working as a worker node, and then machine three, which is working as a master node. Now, if you're doing it on AWS cloud, AWS cloud doesn't have any restrictions, so you can create them. But the important thing is you make sure that you create at least two vCPUs, I think 8 or 16 gig memory, which is given in the prerequisite section. We have a separate video for that prerequisite. Make sure you do that. If you're doing Linux on Azure, if you're doing it on a pay-as-you-go model, then there is no restrictions on pay-as-you-go. But if you're doing in a free trial account, then there are restrictions in terms of in a one particular in a one particular region, you can only create 4 vCPUs, which means you can create 2 machines only, and that's a limitation. That's why we are doing these, uh, trying to fit in that. So if you are doing it in on a Azure free trial, then you have to do some extra work, which is creating them in 2 different networks, 2 different regions, so that it supports the limitations on free trial account. But otherwise, as long as all this guide expect is 3 machines, they can talk to each other freely and the ports are open. That's important thing. And now these are documentation. I'm not going to go this because we've already covered. Now, if depending on you can either do it on whatever machine you want, as long as the machines, as I said, repeat on. We are going to give a prerequisite on Azure Cloud, how to create 3 machines, both in a free trial account of Azure or the pay-as-you-go model as well. And if you're doing AWS 3 machines, there is a separate video prior to that that will be there in wherever you're watching this as well. Now, another thing for information, these are port numbers needs to be enabled. By default, we have opened all the ports between master node and a worker node, and so that they can talk to each other. But I'll explain you. The API server runs on a master node. So API server is which will request any client request application. Client request will be anything and everything that you need to work on that Kubernetes cluster that's going to happen via this API server, which means you want to deploy an application, you want to add a node, you want to delete a node, or whatever you do, you're going to hit on API server. By default, that API server runs on a master node on a port number 6443. So that my worker nodes should be able to talk to this master node on a port number 6443, sorry. And similarly, clients which needs to fire a kubectl command, which we'll see later when we're deploying applications in future, the 6443 port should be open as well. Now, etcd, which is a storage, which is where all the configuration files are stored. It's a database. Think of it as a database key value pair in an etcd store. That etcd store listens on multiple ports between 2379 to 2380, these port numbers. API server and etcd talked on these port numbers, so that needs to be enabled as well. Now there's a kubelet API. Kubelet is runs on all the worker node and a master node, so that kubelet should be open from between master node and worker node. Also, there's a kube scheduler, kube control manager like that. These are port needs to be open on master node. Similarly, in a worker node is kubelet API, which is I mentioned earlier, 10 to 50. That must be enabled because that's how the master node and worker node communicate with each other. Similarly, there's a node port, which is more about when we talk about services later part we go. That services will listen on this node port number, this range, and you can always increase or change these, so that port needs to be opened as well. Now, I'm not going to cover this in Microsoft Azure. How to open these ports will be covered separately video. This is I'm giving. If you hit a problem with master node unable to talk to worker node, or worker node trying to connect to master node not able to connect, that probably is because you have a firewall connectivity issue. On Azure, similarly, you do it on AWS, so make sure that AWS has a security group that basically allow connections between master node and worker node. Here also in networking, you have security rules, inbound security rules and outbound security rules. Those should be enabled as well. I'm not covering that. There'll be separate video if you want that. Make sure you have a master node and a worker node, 3 machines are ready. Again, we'll cover it separately outside the scope of this document. Now, I'm assuming you have 3 machines, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to run these commands on as a root user. And again, if you're new to Linux, make sure that inside the program, you will have a classroom and go for Linux for beginners. You go that first. I'll explain you on, if you scroll down Linux for beginners, that will have, you should be familiar with VI, and you should have created a Ubuntu machine and have used VI editor before this class. If you've not done, make sure you make yourself comfortable. We are going to run these commands from a root user. By default, you use Ubuntu user, or depending on Azure or AWS, the user might be different, but then you need to switch user to root, and that's what we're going to do, sudo -i. So first, we're going to install Kubernetes Containerd, kubeadm, and kubectl other packages on all three machines, worker node and a master node, two worker nodes. So what I'm going to do is, as we move forward, we're going to cover these commands, and I'm going to start machine as well. I'm doing it on AWS, but it doesn't matter. These are three machines which have master node and worker node. These are currently stopped. So let me start all the three machines right now here, and we're going to open these three machines and we'll connect to, so I'll say start instance. How to connect again to these machines? We are using, if you're in a Windows machine, use PuTTY, or if it's a AWS, you can directly go and from the browser itself as well. If it's a Linux machine, if you're working from a Mac machine, Mac uses terminal. Again, how to do that, I've covered. Again, connecting to Azure Ubuntu, you can do it from a Mac, of videos here. Linux, PuTTY, also in this Linux for beginners, so that we keep segregate as a modular approach and make sure that before moving to the next part, you're clear with these concepts. So I'm going to refresh and see all the three machines are running. And once these are running, I'm going to open the three terminals, and then we'll connect to these three machines as well. So once, I think I'm assuming you already are familiar with connections, and if not, please go through the prerequisite. These are IP addresses. I'll pick up all these. I need the public IPs, so I'll be using these public IPs and connecting. So let me pause this video. I'm going to connect three machines and open master, and then we'll come, and then from here I'll start these here sudo -i. I don't want to repeat that because we already covered. And if you already know this, fast forward this part, and then we'll come to this part here. So just let me show it to you. And again, if you hit any problem in connectivity, that there's a separate video, you connect separately, and make sure that you're familiar with this. So I've picked up this IP address, and you go to the session. I've picked up 13.22234.32.211, and then you come under auth under here, and credentials, sorry, auth here, and private key. So under credentials, you have a certificate to use private key. We browse, and then I have the keys which I've already created under this kubeadm, which I've already use this key, and then we'll save this, go back to and save it. Now this is only when you're doing it on AWS. For Azure, you can use username and password as well. So there's another option. So connectivity, again, as I said, I'm keeping it outside, and click on open. We're going to use, it has already picked up this file kubeadm.ppk. It should be ppk for a Windows machine, and if it's a Linux machine, it should be I think it's a I think .ssh or something like that on Linux or Ubuntu machine, sorry, on Mac or this. So I think, if I'm not wrong, it will be logging as Ubuntu. So I think the user ID is correct or wrong. Let me hold on 1 second there. So as I was trying to connect, there was a PuTTY. It looks like there was an issue with the PPK file. So there's another method of connecting. That's why it's saying there's a multiple ways. So I'll say click on connect, and then coming here, and then we'll say that using here uh, on here, and it'll connect as a Ubuntu user, and we'll say click on connect, and that will open a new tab, and that is where you will have a master node logged in as well. So it's a simple and easy method on AWS. That's why I think I love AWS. You can do the same thing with you don't have an option yet on Azure cloud for now. So you'll be logging in as a one user. Let me connect similar way, or start another two machine, connect to other two machines. This is the master node, and we're going to go and start other two machines as well, which is a worker node. Now in this case, we right click on and open a new tab, and this is going to be my new, let it connect again, and then we'll say connect, and that will open a new. And similarly, we'll do one more tab, which is for my third machine, which is a worker node 2, which is a worker 2. So let me go back on worker 2, and like that, I'm going to open, idly connect, open a new tab. So now I have, this is my master node Ubuntu, and this is my worker node. Where's my worker node 1 gone? So this is my 1 second. So we'll type host name, and this is IP address. I'll double check and we'll come to that. I wanted to see the host name, what this host name is. And this is connecting, and we'll open one more here. So if you notice now, this is my master node. Ending with 193 is my master node. This is my worker node. 84 is a worker node 1, and this is 26 is my worker node 2. So these are three machines that we are working. Now parallelly, we are going to go and look at all of these commands one by one and put it in the notepad as well. So first we are going to run is then go to sudo as a root user. So first we are doing is I'm connecting to all three machines as a root user, so that to avoid any we're going to run these commands as a root user. So sudo -i. So that's now if you see it's root user. We do the same thing on here as well, and on the third machine as well. We're going to run all these commands parallelly. Paste and then sudo. So I've logged in as a root user on 3 as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste these things let me copy on a different machine, so that we can run these commands here um, as well. So open a new, not tab, new window. Okay, and then we'll put it here. So next is about we need to configure our kernel modules so that containerd configuration file can be, or containerd configuration file can be used. So we are creating a containerd file. In that we are setting up a parameter overlay and BR net filter. Again, if you want, you can go deeper into these things, but we are not going to pick the $sign. And these are three different commands. I'm going to pick it separately. So which means we're going to pick one full at a time. And then so what we are saying is t means create a file, and then in that file introduce this whole thing, overlay this EO file, which is still end of file. So it will be entering two entries into this. So let me go and put it into all the three, paste and hit enter. And then if you want to do cat on this file, if you want to, which is etcd module dconf modules dot load dot and then containerd, you'll see the entry which is has added overlay pnet filter. Same thing we're going to do now, paste here all three commands. That's why we need to do this all three machines as well, and say paste and hit enter. So we've added it here. Now next is let's go back to the documentation, and then next is we're going to load the kernel module now on Linux kernel. So this is where we're going to do mode prep. Ignore the $sign in front. That's why it's very, very important. So we're going to remove the $sign in front. The $sign is representing this. So I'm going to run both the commands one by one on here. So we'll first go on to the master node, paste and hit enter. And then we'll do the same thing on both paste and on the third one as well, paste. And if hit any problem, I think do one by one as well. If you're not sure, do it one by one. So once this is done, we are going to go and then update our IP table. So IP table is a firewall at a Unix level, which we are saying that we are setting up IP table 6.1 for IP tables here. So IP, and we are configuring forwarding in IP tables, which is nothing but a Unix level firewall. Again, the same thing. We are updating kubernetes.conf file or kubernetes.conf file. In that we are setting up these two parameters. So again, that's why this is important to follow in this particular format. So it'll create a file, the same concept. Again, these are basic Linux commands that you should be familiar. This is all we are doing. It is a Unix level. Hit enter. Any point in time you hit an error, that means stop there, then itself fix it properly and then move on. And I'm doing it on a third machine as well. So we do it here. Let's go back to now command done. Next is we are going to apply these kernel settings which we have done. So which means sysctl.system, which means the implementation of these files that we updated will come into effect. We are updating this. So let me go back and one by one all the three commands on a master node. And this is so if you see now this edit entry has been uploaded on here. Same thing with paste. It's kind of equal to, which means changes are taken into effect on third one as well here. Hit enter. And now next is we are going to do is that we are going to add a repository, Docker repository, GPG keys, one as well on here. Now this part is very, very important to note, and then this is where a lot of guys make mistake on these last next two commands. So first what we're doing is we are adding a Docker repository GPG keys to the trusted keys. So what happens is It basically verify the downloaded packages, and will also help you in connecting these machines with all the future packages that you need related to the container D runtime. You might be wondering, oh, I'm doing container D, but why it's Docker? So it uses the same keys, or container D uses the same keys, or in fact, those are related itself. So I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these commands on a notepad first, and this is where I think pay special attention. These are two different commands. So first, I'm changing the permission to 755. Again, we're creating a file and we're also changing the permission 755, which means a read, write, execute by the owner, and a read, and I think read, write and execute. Sorry, 401. I think you need to look at. I think it's read, write, execute. So write and execute on this 55. There'll be some options for others. Sorry, for others and the group members, this permission is required. Again, look at the permissions issue. Then second is I'm going to copy it as a one single line. This is important. That's where people make a mistake. They copy into the two different parts. So if you see, that's a one single line here. So don't put it in two lines, otherwise it will fail. Second thing is again this one. This one we are going to do it in a particular manner, which is here. Again, another mistake people do is they remove this dollar. This means a new line. This means a new line. But if you look at this whole is one single line here. Ideally, this whole in double bracket should be one single line. I've broken down to three small parts. So this is line 1 and ampersand of / line number 2 and line number 3. This is one single command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste this here. What I'm saying, the reason I'm telling you these is because that's where a lot of guys make mistake. You shouldn't be doing that. If you hit a problem, this is where that means you have not copy pasted. So I've done this command, uh, second command here, and third command here, and hit enter all three, which is good. Next, I'm going to do is I'm going to run this command as it is, and then I'm going to go to my master node, which is this one. I'm going to go and do my this node, and then I'm going to go my this node and all three here. Brilliant work. So next is I'm going to go and run this command, copy paste as it is. Ideally here these are three lines because I've added this forward this slash, whatever, forward or backslash. I think it's a backslash. So paste on first. It can be done any order on any of these three machines, but as long as this is done. So if you see no error, which is good. If you hit an error, that means you've done something wrong in the top copy paste. It's good here, and then same thing here, and say post here. Brilliant, good work. Next is, so this is done. Let's go back to the documentation again, and if you go here, next we are doing installing containerd. So we are apt-get. Apt-get is a command for installing in a packages on Ubuntu. I think on Unix, or sorry, on Red Hat Linux, you use yum or other repositories. So like that, we are doing now and saying we're updating and getting the latest install, and we are saying first we are updating all the packages which are there to the latest version, and I'm installing containerd.io. So let's take this command. Let me make it final again, and this apt, and I'm going to go into those four commands again here. So first is master node, paste, and then now it's downloading the packages. I'm going to run the same command on worker node 1, and I'm going to do the same on worker 2, and it's going to download the packages, asking me the permissions, or it'll ask me. So if you see, it has downloaded all or refreshed all the versions, packages to the latest version, whatever is required or whatever is on this machine, and then it's downloading and installing containerd here, saying no VM guests are running outdated hypervisors. So all are fine, and it's configured all the required. If you hit an error, you should be able to see there should be no errors here. Same thing is good here, and same thing is here because I've just created these machines. So all the packages should already be there on the latest version. So we have installed now containerd.io. And next is I'm going to configure the containerd.io. So these are three commands. Again, ignore the dollar in front, and I'll explain you these commands, what we are doing. Here. So we are still doing containerd. Make a note of this notepad, and we'll save this notepad. Let me, okay. So these are three commands which we are doing. So if you notice now, the mistake is containerd said, so this, okay, hold on one second. I think I made it. Yeah. So this sed command is one single command, whole from here to here. So if you notice now, these are three commands. I'm first creating a folder called etcd container d. So let's go back on all the three commands, master node and worker node 1 and worker node 2. And then I'm going to go and run this command, which is container d. I'm saying I'm configuring on container d and creating a configuration config.toml in this file. So we're going to do it in master node, worker node 1, and then worker node 2. Okay, then once done, then we are going to look at the final command, which is said I'm querying and I'm saying system C group. Again, if you want to go deeper, understand what is system C group. These are configuration related to the that particular setting up the kernel permissions on C group, which is using and will setting the value to true in this file, inside this file. And I'll show it to you how does file look like. So we're going to do it, and I think this is this time I've done worker node 1, sorry 2. This is worker node 1, and this is my master node. Just paste here, and then if you want to see what is the content of that, you can cat is a command like file output. This is like view the file content of the file. So container d and then config.toml, and if you notice now, that should have changed the value, one of the parameters of values what they were asking about. Let's see. uh, yeah, so we asked to change system C group. So if you read the system C group somewhere, one second. Okay, I'm going to find it out for you and then tell you the system C group here. Hold on one second. Yeah, so I've executed a command called search again, and grep minus I, I'm saying grepping the command sys. So if you see here, system C group as values changed to earlier, I think one of the value here, it was earlier system D. System C group is being changed to true. The value here, whatever we changed earlier, I think it's changed to, sorry, it was changed. Yeah, it's changed to true from false. Okay. So that makes sense. Let's move on to the next part. So those now we are restarting this daemon, which is restarting, enabling all these daemons, and as well as container D restart, enable, and setup. So let me go back onto here, and so I'm reloading the daemons, and then I'm saying restart the container D and enable, and then status will check that. So let's run all of them in one go. So we go with master node and paste it. And this is important. If you see, this should be active and running. If you fail, there's some problem here. This is, I'm saying this process running now. So my system, that container is running here. Same thing I'm going to do, paste here. And again, this is active and running. And then worker node also active and running. It should come and say active and running. So we are good. My container D runtime is running right now. We have not done any Kubernetes installation yet. It's the container runtime that we have done. So let's see, I've copy pasted the notepad command is fine. Then we are updating the package. So what we're doing here is then app package to install package that's needed for Kubernetes HTTPS certificate configuration. I'll explain you. The master node and worker node communicate using TLS certificates, transport layer security. So worker node authenticate themselves to the master node, and master node authenticate to the worker node through exchange of SSH keys. And for that SSH keys or TLS keys, SSH, sorry, not SSH, but TLS keys or SSL keys, transport layer security, or SIPs, or SSL secure security layer, uh, that needs to be uh, using them. For that, we need to install these certificates as well here. So that's what we are doing. We are installing these packages. So I'm going to go. We could have done all the packages in one go, but I think it's okay. Let me close this window. I'm not using this. So let me go on to and do it on a master node. This is my master node, and say paste. And so it's downloading. I'm going to do the same thing on a worker node 1, and I'm going to do the same thing on worker node 2. So master node, it's saying fine, it's all done, up to date. This is also up to date. This is up to date. Make sure there's no errors into these that command we are firing. And I think I've copy pasted in the notepad. Yeah, done. Next is we are downloading the GPG keys for Kubernetes package. So earlier we did it for the Docker container. This time we are doing for Kubernetes packages. So we'll enable, again, this whole command should go into one single line. It's very, very important. So this is one. If you see now, this is one full single line command. I'll double check and copy paste from here to avoid any problems. One single line. I'll go and first on a master node, and then I'm going to do it on a worker node 1. Then I'm going to do it on a worker node 2 and make sure there's no errors into any of those. So we'll say double check, find there's no error, and no error. We'll go back to the master node 1 again. So next is we are going to do is, okay, again, this is where people make again mistake here. What we are doing is here we're we're adding repository keys, system packages source again the way we did earlier. So it's one line again here. Uh, so if you see now, this is a one single line, if you notice there. So one single line, and make sure that you copy, paste again, copy one single line all the way till end. And if you notice here, I'm using 1.29 version of Kubernetes. If you look at packages, Kubernetes packages 1.29. In future changes, if things change, we'll copy paste and change that. I think at the time of recording this is doing 1.39. Let me close these terminals, put these here to avoid any confusion. We go back on, say, this is my master node. We go and paste it here, hit enter. And if you see now, it's saying deb signed by, okay, we are good. There's no errors. Same thing on here. No errors. Same thing here, no errors, which is good. And now, that's good job on here. Now we are installing these packages. The way we did earlier, we did for container D. Now we are installing packages. What packages? kubectl, kubeadm, and why are we doing kubectl twice? Oh, sorry, one is kubelet. Sorry, my mistake. That's what I'm saying. So one is kubelet. Kubelet is the one which will communicate with between master node and worker node. And kubectl is the command line interface for you fire to run some commands. So we are going to do it on here. Let me go back to the next line and of this here. So I'm going to pick this command here and we'll run it on a first master node. Or you can run it any node because we are not yet connected, and then same thing with master node 1 and same thing with worker node, worker node 2 and worker node 1. And see, it's still processing, it's downloading the packages. And it's being done successfully. Nothing to ask. Successfully, no errors. It's still doing it. Let it complete. In the meantime, no errors as well, which is good. It's good signal. Next is we are going to holding the Kubernetes packages to prevent any automatic changes, which is we don't want any update next time happens that it being updated. So we are going to take this command here and we're going to put it and say we'll put it hold on any updates the way we would update it just now. By default, if you run this command, which is update yum or apt update, it'll update all the packages, but we'll saying not to do on these ones. We do the same here and we do all worker node 2 as well. Next we are going to do is we are enabling the kubelet on. So again, enable the kubelet, which means when the system restarts, it will automatically be started on all the 3 nodes. So enable the kubelet. We are enabling the kubelet on the worker node 1 as well, and the worker node 2 as well here, all 3. Brilliant work. And then next is we are going to, now this is again important. So this is now we have done only on all the 3 nodes. And this is where now the following command, which is initializing the worker node, the master node, which will happen only on the master node only. So that's why I say master node only. Pay special attention. I'm going to pick this command, and below that I'm saying now master node only, and below this command, and then there'll be some commands will run on worker node. So now we are initializing the master node by clicking on this. If you run this command on worker node, they will also be initialized on as a master node. So we don't want that. And if you fail here, this is where it's going to connect to the internet, this machine, and download. Now, if this machine by default we have put it into public subnet, that's why it can connect. If you have a machine on a private subnet in actual implementation, then you can use things like NAT gateway or some other options as well, or you can point this repository pointing to a local repository as well. A lot of other things can do. We're going to keep it minimal, what you need in order to configure this so that you understand this. It's downloading all the required packages, all the configuration, everything and from the internet and putting it and saving it in the local ones. And then it'll start these configurations as well behind the scene. So we'll wait. Um, so it's basically, if you see now, it has created. And now these are important points. To start using cluster, you need to run the following commands as a root user. First, we are going to create a .cube file, which is a hidden file, hidden folder. And then inside that, we are going to copy my config file into this folder. And then we change the permission of that config file, and or we can set, and then we set the export kubeconfig file into this admin.conf, which is under this admin.conf that we see. I'll share all the steps. And then on the worker node, we are going to do is we're going to run this command to join. So we'll take a note of this on the worker node. At the time of worker node, we are going to join this using these commands. So we'll copy paste this, hit right click, and we'll copy that on a notepad. So keep it safe. And then I'm not sure why it's not being copied. So maybe, and say right click and then copy. Um, so keep it. Now this is important. The token is specific to yours. The IP address will also be specific to yours. So these things will change. This is my master node IP address. 6443 is API server. This is a token key. This is the hash algorithms, which is it needs to connect. So we're not doing anything right now. We'll just make a note. And now first we are going to verify that cluster, what happened. So kubectl get nodes. So let me copy paste this one as well. And that command I've just copy pasted, and I want to see get node. So right now there's no node, only one node was, this is the in that cluster. So there's no node, and we are going to run this on a master node only. So we'll post, and if you see now here, now I'm getting this command and say get node. I couldn't connect to the API server, timeout, because the configuration file is not done. So let's see why it's getting this command. Idly 8080 was refused because the configuration file is not there. So I think some steps are there required, which is being missed here, which is the environment kubeconfig file. So if you see here, error because this was talking about the connection to host was refused. Did you specify the right host or port? That is where my configuration file needs to be configured properly. So first, let's see there is a configuration file, and I'll explain you what this sorry for this. So let me copy paste this command here. Oh no, I should have done cat and then the output of this command, which is here. So now I'll explain you what this means basically. So this is where it's saying my cluster. This is my config file. This is where all the configuration of cluster stored. So it's saying cluster. This is the certifying authority, which means it's going to verify from this authority. And this is my server. This is my local IP address of the window, this machine of where master node is running, and it's listening on a port number 6443. That's where the configurations are, and the user context, all those things. This is my client certificate and it's going to use this client certificate and the data that it's going to connect. So I hope that makes sense. That's how it's going to connect. My worker node will come to know. So the reason why I'm not able to connect this is because I have to set this configuration file, export kubeconfig, and I need to, every time a machine restart, I need to set this command again, and that's why we're going to put that into my bash HRC, which I'll explain you in a minute later here. So I'm going to paste this here command and hit enter. Now it's being set here. Let me save it on one point here as well. And now I run that command, which is kubectl get nodes. It's running. That's only one node, which is a control plane. It's not ready yet, which is fine. And it's running, started 5 minutes back. I paused this recording for a minute while I was typing some command. That's why I say 6 minutes. And it's version 1.29 version of Kubernetes. Now, next is again, still we have to do some work, which I'll explain you in a minute what does mean. Now, every time I restart the machine, this variable will be removed. This kubeconfig parameter will be removed, and it uses kubeconfig parameter file to look at where to find my admin.conf file. So that's why I'm saying is I'm setting up and say that point my this file under this folder, but I'm setting in the bash RC, which means every time a machine you log in as a root user, it basically initiates this file bash RC. So that's why I'm copying them. And next time I restart my machine, the variables are still there intact here. So I'm going to copy paste here. and then I'll put it on a master node and say paste. And that's for future restart of machine, which is good. And then if I do cat brc batch src, it will show me what this command is doing, which is basically I've added at the end this file that's being added in the file in the end. So let me also this verify, though it's not required. Now install CNI, so container native container network interface, so that my networking can connect, which is my VNet CNI. There are different type of CNIs we are installing so that my pods can communicate over the cluster DNS to start functioning, and that's why we need this VNet CNI. So I'm going to kubectl. I'll explain you in a minute this command. First time we are firing this kubectl command. No, I think we have done earlier. So what I'm doing in this worker node is that I'm downloading the VNet daemon YAML file. So if you want to, you can Google it. Or sorry, not Google it. Basically, start on the browser, and you can see what these YAML file is, or the content of the YAML file. It will open the YAML file. Let me download it under Kubernetes folder, and I'll show you how does Kubernetes this content look like. So again, later you're going to do these YAML files yourself. Let me open that under using a notepad. So let me go back to this folder. Why it's not letting me? No, let me open it via here. I wanted to show it to you. I will open it using a Word document or something. Open with, come on, open with, where is open? Open with, sorry. So, okay, more apps, and I want maybe either use a notepad or WordPad is easy. So we'll use WordPad. I'll explain that what it means. So basically, I'm saying the API, it's kind of a list. So it's downloading all the API version, RBAC, and all those things that you need. You can read it further. We're going to cover YAML files later, and we're going to be using YAML files as we move forward inside this program and go deeper into this program. So let me go back, and just from the documentation point of view, not this one as well. So we are going to copy this into a notepad, which we were doing. Oh yeah, I've already copied this. So we're going to copy this whole daemon set, and we're going to run it only on the master node. Important, we have not touched anything yet on worker node after since we've last mentioned. So it's basically going to apply. So it's going to actually go and implement these things on a Kubernetes cluster. It's connecting to these, and if added these service account is added service account. It is also created a cluster authorization role for VNet, and these are the things that has been created, RBAC and daemon set as well. What is daemon set? What is RBAC? What is service accounts? We'll cover that as we move forward inside deeper into this. Yeah, hope makes sense. So good job on that. Let's keep moving on forward. Now done, and now this is master node work is done. Now we are going to do and run on the worker node. So kubeadm to join worker node. So this is where we are going to run on both the worker node, this command that we saw earlier. So I've already copy pasted. If not, if for some reason, if you want, if you forgot that command, you can just run command to create a token again using this command. We have already done that. We don't need. So I'm going to say on the worker nodes now, worker nodes, sorry. And I'm going to pick this. Let me say hash here up, and this was my master node. Okay, this is my worker node. So I'm going to copy this. Now again, it's a 2 lines because I've added a backslash here. So it's like copy paste from here. And this time I'm going to run it on a worker node. So I'm going to go and change it to worker node 1 and click on paste and hit enter, and it's going to connect now. And again, if you hit any problem here, that means this is going to be worker node can't connect to master node and look at the firewalls. So we are saying run kubectl get nodes on the control plane to see the join node join command. So I'm going to come here, and now again I'm going to look at my get nodes, and now if you see now control plane is ready, worker node is ready, this one worker node. I'm going to go and run the same command on worker node 2 as well, and once it's done, it's waiting for the bootstrap. Bootstrap done. It's very quick command basically, as long as there's a network connectivity. And now I'm going to run this command again, get nodes. And now if you see now 2 nodes coming which was earlier 84. 84 is there, but it has added one more 26 machine. So I have two worker nodes as well now here. So good progress on this. Good job if you've come so far. I've got the worker nodes, and now this is where we're going to look at. We run other commands as well, kubectl, and all the kubectl commands we're going to run from the master node only. So I'm going to do and say kube system. So I'm going to get the pods, and pods is nothing but the applications and container or collection of containers, which I'll show you in a minute here. So I'm going to run kube get pods is nothing but a collection of applications. So let's go back onto the master node and run. And these are custom applications. So there's no, what is namespace? Collection of it's a logical collection of Kubernetes cluster. In the default namespace, there's no pod. These are non-system pods, and pod are nothing but collection of one or more containers. So this is 0. But then if you look at the system, I want to say kube system, which are the pods that come by default in order to build and manage this. So we run this command again on master node. So all the kubectl commands, typically you put it into the issue onto the master command, or you can run it from anywhere client, which is kind of configured to run on the master. Eventually we'll go and hit the command on the master node. So these are the default pods that comes at a system level, which is a core DNS. This is for DNS, so that any host names or naming names convert into IP addresses. It's for etcd. This is my API server IP. This is a controller manager. This is a kube proxy, scheduler, and then VNet related pods to run and manage VNet. So these are the different default port because we've configured those points here as well. Now I'm going to clone my Git repository as well, and that is where all my commands will be here. So I can run this Git. So what I'm doing now is just double check in which folder. So it's going to download all the future applications, all the work we're going to do. So what it's doing is it's cloning that whole folder, Kubernetes folder, and creating all the YAML files inside that. So again, we're going to do it on the master node. And if you do pwd, I'm under root folder. And if I click on paste, and it's basically cloning. So basically it's going to this folder on the internet and on the GitHub, and then downloading from our K21Academy UK folder, and it's downloading all cloning. Hey, hit enter. It's downloading all the files. So if you do, it has created a Kubernetes folder. If you go to Kubernetes folder, inside that you have all the YAML files. That's where you're going to use in later applications. Like these are, as name suggests, these are Docker file related, ECS related, Terraform related. These are YAML files related to config maps, daemon sets. Lots and lots of things we are going to do. Guest books, Fluentd, ELK stack, Kibana, ELK stack, metric servers for auto scaling, and horizontal pod auto scaling, NFS, which is a persistent volumes, node affinity, pod dynamics, persistent volume claims, and then we are going to do readiness, which is like props, which are going to do security, RBAC, those things. Lots and lots of labs they're going to go as we move forward on this program. So that's pretty much, if you've come so far, big congratulations, good job, you've done pretty much all the work. Now, what I wanted to do is at this point, pause this recording, go back and watch this one more time. If it's not clear, make your notes. If you have any doubts, write down, and then share your learning. How to share is I've created a video why we should be doing as well important. Go and post on a LinkedIn as an authority, not by learning, but saying you got an assignment from a client where you created a 3-node cluster. These are some things high level you do. Again, keep it high level, don't do too detailed, unless you want to share that knowledge with others. And of course, you should be sharing the knowledge, but people want to know the high level again. And then you say, what are the lessons learned, issues encountered, all those things will be helpful to build your profile, and tag me. And if you go to LinkedIn, and let me show it to you, and tag me, and then tag K21Academy, so then it will have more awareness. It will go and reach to the more audience as well here. So what you're going to do is you come on a LinkedIn profile, create a post and maybe whatever you want to do, and then you tag and say Atul Kumar, and then also @ K21Academy, and this one, and that way it'll be tagged and it'll also go to visibility on our audience as well, my list, and then I'll go to circulate and I'll share, and then it'll go and my K21Academy will share and increase, and then add some hashtags and some key learnings with a good subject line as well. All those things are covered in this video, which I think I've covered here. Let me close this one point here. Yeah, so all in this Loom call, and if you have any doubts, query as well. Like this is again, here's an example Sriram has done, deploying and rolling a stateful application to Kubernetes, Bootstrap 3 node. This is an example he has done brilliantly work and with some images and graphics as well, and that tagged K21Academy as well. Now, also make sure that you share in WhatsApp group. That way it tells me that you have done these things and it'll inspire me and inspire others as well. And the final thing, which is also on our community, which is very, very important, go on community. So on here, under community, under wins, because that will tell others. So maybe you can skip WhatsApp, you can post here and say installed uh, installed 3 node cluster or K8s or whatever cluster. And then whatever you want to write here, or just one or two line, maybe screenshot as well, and put under category wins, because that way it will also, as I said at the start as well, that will basically um, uh, tell your mind, it will basically simulation to your mind, and you will do more and more of those labs, and people will comment, and you'll see get inspired, and you'll do other labs as well, and vice versa. Others will do it. They will see this your post, and they will do it, and they will post it, and you will get inspired, and the whole cycle goes in. That's what is pretty good. Also, people will reach out to you and to get help. Also, always help others, because that's how you learn a lot as well. And the final part in this is now, which is about about cleaning it up. That's very, very important as well. So where's the document? I think I missed one. Yeah, so you go, and final part is that make sure you shut down the services. Best would be to shut down all. So I'm going to go on, whether depending on Azure or AWS. I'm showing it on AWS. So I'm going to go on to here and select all three master and worker nodes and shut them out, and then stop and then stop instances, and click on stop. Make sure that no one is using them, or at least, of course, I'm assuming it's you. Always double check it. Sometimes they are not closed properly and you get charged for this. So make sure that you refresh it as well here. Wait for it to finish. And then if you want, because you're going to use that later part when you're deploying the application, and if it's like uh, people ask me about the charges. So if you shut them down, then majority of charge on these VMs are for when you keep it up for memory and the CPUs. But when you shut them down, you not get charged. There's a very minor charge about storage, but it's very, very cheap. Storage is very, very cheap. So I think it's totally worth, in my view. You'll do for a month maybe just under a cents, a couple of cents basically, 1 to 3 cents like that. But storage is very, very cheap. So it's worth, so that next time you come, you just restart the master node and a worker node, and they'll connect each other, as long as you have configured that bash rc script, which is Kubernetes admin config file. Now, one final thing I want to tell you again is go through the troubleshooting section. Very, very important. I'll explain you when it's unable to get it while connect the node to the master node. Then there's a high probability that um, that you're not, there's a master node can't talk to worker node or vice versa. If you're getting local port 8080 was refused, we saw that earlier already. The configuration file was not properly configured. Kubeconfig was not set properly. If you're error while running kubeadm init command, because you're running init command again, maybe, yeah, okay, if you're trying to run twice, it will fail. So make sure that you don't do that. If you're running the join command, the tokens are for limited time. The token might have expired, so you have to recreate the token as well. Again, when running kubeadm init, we found that some people were doing it in an on-premise world, and they were not using the right CNI, so that could be the problem here. So we fixed VNet and Flannel. So Flannel was not working. They installed two CNIs, that was causing the problem here. Another one was the worker node can't ping after installing, so that pinging was a problem. Telnet was problem on this. So troubleshoot. This is again on on-premise. Lot of these issues that you see is more on them on-premise, or maybe kubelet is not running. Make sure that kubelet is running. You need to restart and remove the package and install again as well. Kubeadm commands. Connection refused 6443. So make sure that again kubeconfig file is not configured properly. Admin.conf was not invoked properly. Update while Kubernetes up repository, because you have not copied in one single line. Again, keep telling you that single line. If you're getting an error like X509 on the server, what could be the reason? Registry certificates were not added. One of the commands was missed again here. If it says getting error while already exists, kubelet.conf, already exist. The command was so if a if you're rerunning, you might have to reset the cluster by kubeadm reset command worker node and try to join that with the new tokens as well. Um, all these commands that you see are mainly for typos. Again, if you're trying to configure and connect and not able to connect, there might be firewall at a machine level as well. If again on premise, if you're not using the trial or the machines that we've created by default, firewall D, which is a firewall at a machine IP tables level or machine level, firewall might be active. That might be protecting this connectivity as well. So another one on this or disable swap, which you've seen in the past as well. Like that, go through this, and if you need any help, let us know. And yeah, so that's pretty much. Also, give us a feedback. How did you enjoy this? Watch that maybe a couple of times, make notes, and then make sure you perform the lab and do inform and shut down the machines for sure. So let me double check final time. So if the machines are down, and these three machines are down, stop. Looks pretty good. Well done, guys. Do that and let me know how it goes. And any guide that is not elaborate as like this, let me know and give me a rating as well. Did you enjoy this video? And yeah, let's get going and let's perform. And yeah, that's pretty much from my side. Take care. Bye bye.